Hey everyone, welcome back to Love Wins, where truth matters because it's the truth that sets us free. It's been a while since I made a video. I apologize for that. We had a cold and flu run through our house that I hope I never ever see again. Never seen anything like it before. But we're recovering and we're back and glad to be so. This is the second part of my series on fear. And the reason why I jumped into this series was because I came to the realization that fear is not just a problem. It might well be the problem. And let me explain to you biblically why I believe that's so. When Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment was, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That command to love one another, love your neighbor, love each other, love God, is in various ways only repeated 13-ish times. There might be more, but it's not a lot more if there is, in the entire Bible. The command from God to not be afraid, fear not, don't be afraid, those kinds of phrases, 103 times. And there's probably more. I know there's some people that say there's 365, one for every day of the year. I don't know where that came from. It's not true. But even though it isn't true, it is true that God's instruction to us to not be afraid is the most repeated instruction from heaven to humanity. There is no other that comes close. So we're talking roughly 10 to 1 is the ratio of don't be afraid versus love one another. You say, well, what sense does it make that Jesus would say that love is the greatest commandment if the most repeated commandment is to not be afraid? And I believe the reason is because love is not possible where fear exists. The Bible says perfect love casts out fear. Fear has to do with torment. So there's a direct relationship between fear and love. They're not compatible. They cannot healthily coexist, and eventually one wins out over the other. And it appears as though fear, in the various forms in which it comes, is the greatest it's the greatest barrier between us and God, and it's the greatest barrier between us and other people. It's easy to be dry when it's not raining, and it's easy to be brave when there's no trouble. So when Jesus warned the disciples before he was crucified that they were all going to run away, deny him, bail on him, they all said, no way, we'll never do that. Never. But when the day came and the pressure came and the fear went up, they were gone. So we tend to be slaves to the moment. That tends to be our nature. And as long as we live in that up and down roller coaster life of, I'm nice because everything's good today, and as soon as things aren't good, I'm going to be mean, and as soon as things are scary, I'm going to be afraid. Like, as long as we live on that roller coaster, it's not healthy. You can't love. You can't really love in that environment. So what do we do about it? When Jesus gave instructions to not be afraid, often they were not given in a void. He wasn't just saying, hey, just stop being afraid. I mean, that's like saying, don't worry. Don't be sad. Don't. He said, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I'll be with you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. In other words, he was not only telling us not to be afraid, he was giving us the antidote of fear. You need to understand that I'm with you. You need to understand that you're not alone. You need to understand that I'm greater than whatever it is you're scared of. That's why Paul later wrote in the New Testament, if God be for us, who can be against us? But that only becomes true for us if we have a picture of God that is bigger than anything that can scare us. Where do we get that picture from? The whole reason I'm doing this YouTube channel is because I know there are people like you watching who in your heart have a desire for God, but at the same time, you're scared, you're confused, you're not sure, and maybe your religious experiences have actually done not a lot to help you, and maybe even some to harm you. So where do you go? I cannot emphasize enough the phrase that Jesus told religious people. Remember this. Religious people who believed in him. In John chapter 8. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, and you'll be free indeed. Think of how liberating truth can be. Like, if somebody tells you that your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife was cheating on you, that they saw them the night before with so-and-so at such and such a place. If you don't trust your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and you don't know where they were the night before, that could be very frightening. But what if you were with them the night before? The whole night. Suddenly you know the truth of where they were and where they weren't. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, and you'll be free indeed. When you don't know the truth, information can manipulate you. But when you know the truth, it can't. Jesus told a story to his disciples the night between when he gave them the Last Supper and when he was put on trial the next day, that evening. And in that evening, he told them a story of a man who was a landowner, and he gave talents to three different people. To one he gave 5, to one he gave 2, and to one he gave 1. And in the story, Jesus tells the man who got the 5, he went out and did business and traded and whatever, and he multiplied the 5 to 10. And the man with 2 went out and did business and multiplied and traded and made the 2 into 4. But the man with 1 was so afraid that he was going to mess up that he went and buried the 1. So when the master came back to see what they had done with what he gave them, the man with 5 presented that he had 10, the man with 2 presented that he had 4, and the master was really happy with them. And the last guy came and said, "Master, I know that you're a hard man, reaping where you do not sow, and multiplying and succeeding and doing all these things. I was afraid. I was going to screw up. So I buried the talent. Didn't do anything with it. Here it is." And the master said, "It's true that I multiply, that I reap where I don't sow. It's true that I'm successful." But he never agreed with the man that he was a hard man. He never did. Because he wasn't. You don't have to be hard and mean to be successful. And notice that the man who buried the talent said, I this is my picture of you, and so I'm afraid of you. And because I'm afraid of you, I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. And because I'm afraid I'm going to mess up, I'm not going to do anything. And there are work environments like that. Maybe you work in one or have worked in one where the boss is like super demanding, can never please them, and everyone's walking on eggshells, and they're really afraid to do anything or make a decision or take any initiative, because if it doesn't work out, they're going to get stomped on. And if we see God like that, where's the joy in that? Where's the freedom in that? Where's the happiness in that? It doesn't exist. It just doesn't. And there are some homes, Christian homes, that operate as if God is like that. There are some churches that operate as if God is like that. As long as you toe the line, you're okay. But if you don't, someone's going to let you know. It creates an environment of fear. An environment of fear of failure. An environment where you're afraid try anything, do anything, because you might mess up, and then what? Satan has been working hard before humanity was ever created with the other angels to paint a picture of God that isn't accurate. So, for example, when he first came to Eve, he said, did God really say that you can't? Because if you do, you'll be like God, knowing good and evil, and you'll be like amazing, and it'll be awesome. And right away, creating the idea, God's not telling you the truth. God's holding you back. God doesn't want what's best for you. God is keeping from you the one thing that would take you to the next level. Everything Satan said was designed to warp, twist the picture that Eve had of God, made to make him look bad. That campaign has not stopped. And I'll be the first to admit that often religion is foremost in playing the role of making God look bad. In our next video, I'm going to break down for you what the church was teaching when Jesus was here. Some of it you'll be familiar with, some of it you'll be less familiar with, and some of it you may not have known at all. But I want to show you how twisted and bent and evil it was. All designed to make God look bad, because when God looks bad, it puts a barrier between us and him. And the only one that could actually heal our mistrust and heal our fear and bring us to the place where we can actually love, well, we don't go to him because we're scared of him, because the story about him is unappealing at best, terrifying at worst. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, and you'll be free indeed. I encourage you, if you've started, awesome. If you haven't, get into Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, not for the sake of being religious, but for the sake of seeing what kind of a person Jesus was. To know him is to love him. We'll see you next time.